I have another video that describes how to make a loofah bath sponge like this, and it also includes details on how to prep the loofahs uh, to turn them into bath sponges. That video has several views, and I have been asked to do another one, and this is the one we're going to make today. It's a simple one. It is lined on the inside, and it becomes a nice little mitt. You can make these as big or as small as you want. This one fits my hand. I can actually get my thumb in if I want, but it works very nicely. Now, the first thing you have to do is make a pattern. And to do that, I basically laid my hands down and kind of traced around it like this. Grabbed my scissors and leaving some area for seam allowances and deciding how long I wanted it. There it is. Now, how long do I want I want it about here. So I want it about to come to the heel of my hand, like that. Cut that off. And what I'm looking for is more or less an oval. Fold it. And I have my pattern, more or less. We're going to cut it rough. This will make a nice one. Now, I'm leaving a lot of seam allowance because I'm going to trim this quite a bit. But that should do it. Now, I'll show you how to cut them out. I have my prepared loofah nice and damp so I can sew it. These will not sew unless you wet them. I have my pattern, and as you can see, it's a little bit large for this loofah. All I did was I just folded it in half, and I'm going to adjust it a little bit to use as much of the loofah as possible. Now, I'm going to use a marker here, and I'm just going to mark my pattern as best I can. Remember, I'm going to use a pretty good seam allowance. See, there's my hand. It'll be just fine. Now, I'm going to pin it in the middle like this, and then basically trim the edges where I marked. And then decide whether I like the way it looks. There we go. Is that going to be okay? That's going to be fine. Remember, I'm going to have a little bit of a seam allowance here, and that's all I'm going to throw away. Now, I have my loofah blank here, and now I have to find something to put on the outside. If you look at this, where your hand goes, it's going to be covered, and then it's going to have a little cuff here, or whatever you want to call it. So we need 2 pieces of fabric. So I've got a couple of pieces of fabric here. Number one, I want to decide which is my inside and which is my outside. I'm going to look at my loofah and decide. I think I want this for my outside, the part that's going to be scrubbing. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to lay that piece here. Now, what is this fabric? This is actually recycled fabric. It's fabric from a pair of leggings or something that the washer ate. And it's lycra. It's got a large portion of lycra. It is extremely stretchy. It will dry very quickly when you use it. Okay, it's not going to get soggy like a piece of cotton would. So I'm going to smooth it out, and I'm going to take my pins, and I'm going to pin it all the way around, slightly stretched. Okay, I'll pin this, and I'll be right back. I have it all neatly pinned. This is going to be my inside where my handles sit. This is going to be the outside. Now what I want to do is make a seam at least maybe 3/8 of an inch around here. I'm going to look at where my hand's going to be. See, I've got plenty of room. So you want to set your stitch length to a fairly long one because you don't want to put too many holes in this loofah. And depending on your machine, it may or may not feed well. So watch it as you go around. And all I'm going to do is stitch around here like this. Watch as you sew that your loofah fibers do not get caught in your foot. I'm just keeping an eye on it. All done. I can pull my pins out. Depending on your machine, it may not like you to sew over those pins. Now we need to trim. We want to trim everything off and make it nice. See, there's my loofah. We're going to like that one. Make sure you've maintained your oval pretty well, and you're going to trim it back to where you just incorporate that seam. Pretty close, but be careful not to cut into your seam. All right, there we go. Looks pretty good so far. Make a nice scrubby. The next thing we need to do is to make our little cuff thing, our little piece that goes over it. So I just took a simple rectangle, or well, actually it's sort of an oval, at least as big as this. And what I'm going to do, and I know this seems counterintuitive, but I'm going to put it on the face, this part. Not this part, but this part. And like I did before, I'm going to give it a little stretch, and I'm going to pin it. And give it just, because I want it to fit my hand and be a little snug. That's why we're using this lycra fabric. Give it a little snug here. And I'll finish pinning this. Now I'm going to sew it from the reverse. Alrighty. Now I can see exactly where I need to sew. And I'm going to come in and try to match pretty close, but if I go inside, that'll be fine. Back stitch a little bit. we go. Is that going to fit us fine? Yes, it is. It's going to be really nice. All right, we want to trim this. The fabric is kind of damp, so it's a little tricky to trim it because my loofah is still damp. All right, so far so good. Now, I have one more thing to do, and I'll be right back. I cut a piece from that pair of leggings that were messed up by the washer, and I'm going to, starting here, I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to very carefully stretch it like you would a bias tape all the way around. So what I want to do is I want to start just a little ways inside where that cuff is, and from this side I'm going to pin it, stretch it as you go, mostly because you want it nice and snug. And this is Lycra. It's not going to have any problem stretching around this curve. What we're doing is we're binding that outside edge where the heel of your hand will hold it. So it'll be nice and comfy. Cut off the excess. Now we're going to sew that from this side. Notice, you can see my loofah. And because it is Lycra and it's a knit, we don't need to worry about turning edges or hiding the edges at all. Anyway, this is a bath sponge. Alrighty. Now, take our pins out and we're going to turn it. And that's going to make a real nice edge on the other side of our sponge. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick that up and give it enough pins to hold it, to keep it in place. And we're going to stitch it one more time. Notice I did not turn this under. I don't need to. The Lycra will not ravel or anything else. Now I'm going to stitch it in the ditch. Alrighty. Now take my pins out, and all I'm going to do is take my scissors and very carefully trim that as close as I can get without cutting the stitch line. There we go. Almost done. Well, we are done. Cut my threads. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to turn it just like that and work that out. Work the edges out, and there you have it. This side is my loofah. This side is my little handheld thing. Now, I have some more to make. One other thing you can use, and this is, I'm going to do this. I'm not too crazy about it, but I will. Somebody's favorite socks. and they got a hole in them. In fact, they were no longer wearable. So what I'll do is this part will come up here, and this area down here will be the inside. But that's my next project. You can use socks, very stretchy socks, please, not just little cotton socks, but nice stretchy socks. That odd sock in your laundry, the mate's gone. You have no idea where. You can split it and use it here. I like the Lycra from the leggings. That's nice. There's all kinds of other fabric you could use. You could use like a polyester mix t-shirt, but you want something that's really stretchy and something that will dry quickly, because you don't want this loofah sponge to sit and be damp for a long period of time. You want it to dry quickly. Otherwise, it's a natural fiber. It will degrade and disintegrate eventually. Anyway, here's my loofah sponge. It's a nice, easy chore. You can use entirely recycled material. You can make in any shape you want. This one's probably a little more of a rectangle. This one's a little more of an egg shape. But they work out fine. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, like and subscribe.